Hey guys, Tom Cherryholmes here with the FujiNet project. And I have a question. To those of you who will be using this, how do we handle image selection? Well, to explain, let me take you through a bit of what's happening here. When you first cold start a FujiNet, which you can see by the monitor display happening right there, and you can see the lights blinking on and off on the FujiNet when you have one in your hand, it sets everything up so that a default disk image gets loaded. This default image is autorun.atr, and it contains the configuration program, which, among other things, basically allows you to select your wireless network and to allow you to select which disk images you wish to mount either locally on the SD card slot or over the network. We turn on our system here, we can actually see it booted up. And we can see up top, of course, a list of hosts which you can add, remove, swap in, swap out. They can be local, like the SD card slot above. They can be remote, either a local host name like TMA1 here, or something remote, or even an IP address. It really doesn't matter. The issue comes when we start to select a particular disk image, which we do when we hit the return key on a host slot to look at the images on that host. You can see that the local device slot came up very quickly. And what is actually happening here is kind of interesting, because if we look at the individual commands and whatnot that are happening, we can see that we have a combination of directory calls and stat calls, which get information about the file. Now, what's actually happening is essentially that we're getting information about each and every file twice. The first to get the file name, and the second to get the metadata about the file, particularly whether or not the file is a directory or not. This is important, especially if we want to take and support directories. We can, of course, select something, of course, put it into a disk slot, and it's off to the races. Now, you saw that it was working fast enough. We'll eject that real quick. We saw that it was working fast enough on the local unit, and you can see that the performance is still okay for file servers that are on the local network, like this one. And in fact, oops, I accidentally stopped it. So let me go ahead and try that again. Let's see if it recovered. Not, but no big deal. We'll push this back here. Try it again. Now that I've restarted the server, you can see that that both round trips for these individual files are still okay. And actually, with the TNFS code, you can actually see further ahead the stat, so you can see whether or not each file is a directory or not, and you can see the information about the files as a result of the stat call. But again, this takes time. And there's no better way to demonstrate this than when I start moving across to other networked resources, such as over on FujiNet Online, which is on a decent internet connection. You can see that it takes a bit longer. If I go to my Google Cloud Drive, it takes a bit longer. And even on network connections that aren't so good in the first place, like this one. Now you can really see it's pushing a little bit at a time. Now to try and make this to make this reasonably efficient, the read directory call that actually gets the file name to display is passed a length passed a length in its aux1 and aux2 variables to determine how big of the file name to return back. This is literally so that we're not literally sending a 256 byte chunk of data for every single file name that we get back. Rather, it's only 36 bytes, the width of the screen. This is again for speed reasons. And you saw how much it struggled there. It becomes a bit of an issue. And because of this, I have deliberately, as of presently, only limited the file name display to 16 files, the first 16 files that it pulls off of the TNFS server. It will not display anymore, and it will not traverse into directories yet. Because I want to see how we could best navigate potentially a large list of files. Because if we actually were to say, for example, if we really were to go to drive D for a moment and go to my Atari 8-bit folder and go to, let's say, Atari 8-bit preserved software, and we get the ability to read ATX disks for a moment, we can see that there are a huge number of files that are present here. Lots of them. I mean, dear God, and I'm just in the E's right here. And if we actually do an LS1 and then subsequently, I wonder if it will let me do this. I guess I'll have to do this from the shell here. Let me go ahead and pop a window open real quick and do just a quick little WCL so we can see. Go back over to there. Apologies, just a moment. You're not seeing this because I don't have a window actually piped in to OBS to see this. If I do an LS1 pipe WCL, which gives me the number of lines, to give me approximately the number of files that are in this directory, we're looking at 2,348 separate files. I tried before to implement a directory cache, that is, to have the FujiNet read in the entire directory at once and to cache the results temporarily within the flash space on the FujiNet. The problem with this was that it took over 2 minutes, 120 seconds, to read all 2,348 of these entries. So that really is out. So the questions that I have really are twofold. One, how do we, from a user perspective, navigate through all of these disk images in a way that is meaningful and useful to a wide variety of people? Do I simply sidestep the issue and implement a filter? So you type in a filter for what you're looking for and the entries come back? Or do I need to get some help to actually implement a usable pagination scheme so that we can effectively page through all of the entries and not have the situation like we have on the S Drive Max, where everything is limited to 8 characters with 3 character file extensions. This is something that really needs to be addressed, and I need the heads of everyone who has an opinion on this, both in terms of how they would use it, how they would like it to be, how they would like it to work, and those who could actually take and implement something, who could actually help implement something, as I also have a huge number of other issues that I need to attack on the FujiNet side of things as well, the firmware side of things as well. So if you have any sort of insight or anything that you can offer in terms of making something usable, making something that makes sense, please, I would very much like to hear your insights. If you can, reply to me wherever you see this video posted. Reply back, and I will see it. Until next time, guys, have fun.